Sometimes we get a question that was stimulated by a quick tip, a question for another quick tip. And this one was about quick tip 198. This person says, I'm not clear what you mean by warm or cool colors. All that picture looked like varying shades of grays and browns. I'm not colorblind, so what don't I see? This is the photograph I was using for quick tip 198. Yeah, this is the photograph I was using for that particular quick tip. So I think it's time to give a different twist on warm and cool. We have two quick tips already about warm and cool colors. One is 112, where we just introduce the concept of warm and cool colors, and the other one is quick tip 212, where I call myself explaining warm and cool colors. Well, let's do a little clarifying. Now, unlike the other two quick tips, let's start with this concept. Where does that idea of warm and cool colors come from to begin with? We usually come up with words to describe experience. The words that we have in our visual language all refer back to somebody's experience eons ago sometimes. Warm and cool, it works just like that too. Now look at this photograph of fire. In terms of what colors do you see and where do you see them? If you look right in here where the fire is the hottest, you see the color yellow. Now, will that not tell us that yellow, then, if we're using temperature to describe color, yellow is the warmest color? We see it right here. And you notice as the fire gets further and further away, the flames get further and further away from the source of the flame, we see it getting more orange. Yellow-orange first, there's yellow-orange right here. And then it becomes more orange, and then it becomes more red, and you can actually see it sort of becoming a little bit of purple around the edges. If you will study fire for the color, that's what you're going to discover. So the color wheel is arranged, well, the arrangement of the color wheel came out of the spectrum. The spectrum is caused by light going through a gizmo that splits it into color. And so we come up with these colors, which are the only colors we use in painting. It's the combination in some way of these colors that produces all colors. So if we are looking at what warm colors do to cool colors, which is one we have broken down those concepts of warm and cool, we can see that on the color wheel there is a section of colors that are on that warm side. And we see that as these colors, these hues move further from yellow, they become cooler. And you can see that right here. So we have the three, what we call primary colors: yellow, blue, and red. Now, those three colors we know will create in some way or another all other colors. You can see that as yellow, as I pointed out before, as we move around, then red is cooler than yellow. See it right here. The red doesn't appear close to the flame. It appears further away from the source of the flame. Blue doesn't appear in the fire. Now I know there are certain kinds of flames that will produce a blue flame too. But I don't want to get technical like that, because in our experience, we speak of warm as an experience, and we speak of cool as an experience. On the other side of the color wheel, we have the cool colors, and blue is the coolest of all those colors. And if you think about the photographs that you see, or even in your own experience, that when we see ice or snow, the blue is more the perception there. So warm and cool comes from the experience of fire and cold. Now, as far as the colors go, these gray colors this person refers to, I want to do a little experiment for you and show you how that works. Because the color does wonderful, various colors we have do wonderful things to each other. I'm going to start with no color. I'm going to start with gray. I have black right here. And I have white right over here. And I'm just going to make a gray out of the black and white. And we'll just let that be kind of a, what we refer to in the art world as a middle value gray. About right here. Now, by itself, we cannot call that gray either warm or cool. Let's go back to the photograph. We can hold the photograph right here and hold just a little bit of that gray on the back of the palette knife, and you can see that as let's hold that a little bit flatter, as I move the palette knife around in it, you really don't see very much at all that matches that gray. You see some of those colors that seem to go right here. We see the color seems to go a little bit more towards red or purple, and then we go a little bit further over here and the color seems to go a little bit more towards blue, and I accidentally left some right there, but that doesn't make any difference. And even in the tree trunks you might see the colors going a little bit more towards orange. Now here's how that can work. You can do it two ways, but I'm going to do it this way because it's simpler. I'm going to switch now to the brush, and let's put a sample of that gray. This is what we might call neutral. We haven't defined it yet as either cool or warm. And here's the clincher. We can't until we have something to compare it with. And so if then I reach over into blue, here's blue on my palette, and I reach over into blue and I pull some blue down here, and then I reach into that blue with not much, add just a little bit of that blue into this gray that I've created here, enough to tint it just a little bit, not much, and then stroke that here. You can see that begins to feel a little bit cooler. Let's make that just a little bit more. I'm going to lighten it up just a bit because adding the blue, the dark blue, does help also turn it darker. Let's do it this way. Okay, just put that right here, and you can see it feels a little bit cooler. Now we have something to compare with. That then causes this to be a little warmer and then cooler. Now let's see, let's take that experiment further. When you're working with color, there's something you can do that's cheap and informative, and that is you can make little test strips and get some, go to the dollar store, buy a package of cheap index cards, cut little strips from them, and you've got what I call test strips. So if I put some of this blue, this cooler gray, on the end of a test strip like this, and then I hold it up to this photo, then what this person is calling a bunch of grays, is that right? Grays and browns, becomes color. As I pull it up in here, I can begin to see some of this temperature cooler. You can begin to see a little bit of that coming through. And then I see here, I know then, if I add a little bit more blue, I'll begin to get this reflection. I add a little bit more blue, I'll begin to get this blue in the sky, and so on. All right, let's go another direction with that. Maybe this can help you understand a little bit more about the whole concept of warm and cool. So I'm going to rinse the brush out, and what we're going to do now is do a warm. Now, instead of going directly for yellow or orange, I'm going to go for red, because red is warmer than blue, see here, but cooler than yellow. Now there's a controversy in our art world. There are folks out there who claim that red is the warmest of the hues, and I totally disagree with that, only because my experience with red makes it feel cooler when it's beside yellow. All right, I'm going to put in this little pile just a touch of red right over here. Now, because then the red moves into it and becomes more neutral. That's a really, really strong red. We can see right there. It doesn't take much of that particular red. But when I put this then beside this, this begins to feel cooler than that. So now we might have what the person asking the question we'd call a brown. So let's see what that will do on a test strip. So I'll put just a little bit of that same color on the test strip. Bring the photo back up, and we can see it a little bit. In fact, this is a little bit redder, a little bit warmer than the color I made. Well, let's just add a little bit more red and see if we can do that. If we can get that by adding just a little bit of that red to the gray. Can we get very, very close then to the color we're seeing in that photograph, to the actual temperature? And there it is right there. Now, we've got this comparison. We see that without that, this feels warmer. With that, this feels cooler. So you always have to have a comparison. Let's now go the other direction and add the yellow into the mixture of gray. And then you will see for yourself that the warmer colors, when added to gray, or you can mix those warmer colors by mixing a couple of complements, but we won't go into that in this tip. I've got other tips about complements, producing neutrals or making grays. But let's just go right in here, going back to this original color. And now let's add into that. Shall we add orange? Let's go straight for the yellow. So I'll just pull a little bit of the yellow right in here. I'll tell you what, let's add just a tiny bit of the orange into the yellow. We just get killing two birds with one stone, so to speak. But this will give us about right what we're seeing about right in there in terms of temperature. All right. Now this then warms that up and begins to give us this. Now can you feel this color feels warmer than this? Now we can cover this up. We see a stronger comparison. Even feels warmer than this. Part of that might be developing a sensitivity to how we see warm and cool, but I suggest that if you do some experiments, just like the experiment I did here, where you're starting out with gray and you're adding various warm colors to it or various cool colors to it, then you will be able to develop that difference. And instead of calling these a bunch of, what was it, grays and browns, you will begin to see them as various warms and cools. Be sure to view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell, so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianneMize.com, where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.